Tinubu has emphasized that he has no regret removing petrol subsidy. For the first time in his administration, he hosted a media chat where he discussed major issues affecting the country. He mentioned that his administration has no intention of inflicting pain on Nigerians and that all policies are aimed at making life better.
That you give out, we have to manage our resources within our means. There's no way out that you give out fuel and allow all the entire neighboring countries as Father Christmas. I don't have any regret whatsoever removing the subsidy. It is necessary. We cannot spend our future generations' investment upfront.
Also spoke on the tax reform bills, emphasizing that the bills are targeted at easing livelihood for the poor.
The essence of the tax reform is to eliminate colonial days assumptions in our tax environment. Look at this tax reform. It's pro-poor. The vulnerables are not to pay taxes. All we ask for is widen the net, bake the cake larger, so that we can share a larger meal. What is the need? They will still ask for this consultation no matter how long I delay it. The hallmark of a good leader is the ability to do what you have to do at the time it has to be done.
And responding to questions on the performance of his ministers, the president says he has no plan to reduce the size of his cabinet and that all ministers are adding value.
Livestock is to turn a disaster to prosperity for Nigeria. We have what it takes. We have the arable land, we have animal stock, we have the opportunity. We just have to remove the conflicting element and commercialize the venture. And I went to Brazil, saw what is happening there. Within 2 days, I got a pledge of $2.5 billion. And they have been here to visit Nigeria. To turn what we seen as tragedy to opportunity and prosperity. We can feed ourselves, we can export and feed other nations.
Well, the president addressed the issue of corruption, emphasizing that one of the ways to stop corruption is to block the loopholes. Joining me now is public affairs analyst Olufemi Lawson for more on the president's media chat. It's the first time we're seeing the presidential media chat in this administration. Would you say, Mr. President, had an accurate grasp of the impact of his policies in the past 18 months on the average Nigerian?
Thank you for having me. The chart is timely, considering the very strategic moment that this is taking place. A lot of Nigerians will definitely pay their attention to this. And if you look at the responses of the president to the various questions raised during this chart, you want to agree that the president clearly understands the language that Nigerians are speaking on the street, even though the administration may not have done enough to address some of these, questions that Nigerians are asking, even though some of these challenges are inherited by the administration. But President Bola Tinubu, having sworn to serve the country as the president, has a responsibility because as the president, he has not only inherited the prospects or the assets from the previous administration, he also inherited the liabilities and the challenges that Nigerians were battling with from the previous administration. So from his responses, the president clearly understands the language that Nigerians are speaking on the street, especially as it affects critical sectors that has direct impact on the living standard of our people.
What do you make of his strategy of fighting corruption? He did mention that you rather block the loopholes, the root causes of corruption. What do you make of that vis-a-vis the need to punish wrongdoing and set examples, in that regard?
For me, I think we need more than the president has said. It is good that we block loopholes, but blocking loopholes may not be achievable on the basis of the aspiration or the view of people who have been placed in charge of anti-corruption or even the president himself. There has to be institutional, policies that will further criminalize corruption. We may block loopholes, we may try to prevent people from having access to those opportunities that have made them to fleet on our commonwealth, as the case is in Nigeria over the past couple of decades. But we must also move further by letting perpetrators of corruption understand that this is a crime against the state, against the Nigerian people, that even when there are loopholes, you must be conscious enough to understand that it is criminal. It is, an offense against the state and its people, other people, to be involved in corruption. So blocking the loopholes, very important, but criminalizing further the act of corruption, punishing perpetrators in a way that we are not doing yet will be a step higher than, blocking the loopholes in the fight against corruption in Nigeria.
Well, he did say that he has no regrets removing subsidy, and he seemed to have scored himself high in the past 18 months in office. Talk to us about what you make of his blanket approval for all his ministers. Some would rather say, is this appraisal scientific? We saw some bit of reshuffling in the past months. But do you think that appraisal tallies with the impact we've seen from these individuals?
Well, number one, there's nobody that would have become president or that would have been sworn in as president in May 29, 2023 that would not have removed subsidy. It was virtually the center of discourse for all the major candidates in that election. And it was not a decision taken on May 29, 2023. It has been a long drawn battle, even before the APC came into government, even from the previous political party. So it became like an inevitable decision that any government would have taken. The area of dispute was that, people in the traditional way were expecting the president being sworn in, coming to make further promises. And Mr. President came with a ban, announcing removal of subsidy on that day. But on the performance assessment of the administration, the president said he has performed excellently. Of course, judging by what he has reeled out as his personal assessment of his performance, he has right to say so. But as a Nigerian, and as Nigerians that have high hope in the renewed hope agenda of the president, I would not want to score the president as having performed excellently, even though he has performed fairly well as the president of Nigeria in the last 1 year. And about his cabinet, the number of cabinet we have should be, should be such that will reflect in the performances of our various ministries, the performances of the various sectors that these ministers are saddled with its responsibility. It is the desire of the president to keep this size of cabinet, but our members of this cabinet also justifying the fact that we have about 40-something of them. Are they delivering as much as the president wanted their key ministries today? You can count the number of ministers that are efficiently delivering on the mandate of the president. If you take away the Minister of Interior, Aviation, Education, and a few others, there are ministers in this country today that are practically not actually driving the will of their various ministries as expected, even by the president himself. For anybody who knows the antecedent of this president, you want to agree that some persons are not fit to become members of his team in this administration. So if he has no intention of reducing the size of cabinet, what about reviewing the competencies of those who are in cabinet currently? What about possibly replacing some persons who have no business being in this cabinet and bring people who can drive his mission and his agenda for Nigeria to that extent that we can begin to, as Nigerians, score him excellently, rather than whatever assessment the president has given to himself.
It's an ongoing conversation, Mr. Lawson. I believe that in the coming days, Nigerians will begin to react to some of the positions of Mr. President and what he thinks of the strategy moving forward. Public Affairs Analyst Femi Lawson, thank you for your thoughts.
My pleasure.